Hey, Desperate Housewives super fans, welcome back. I'm Christy Gomez.
I'm Summer Moran.
I'm Cody Kasch.
Our very special guest, and welcome to a very special episode of We Know What You Did.
It makes us sick.
We're gonna tell.
Amazing. Cody was nice enough to hang out with us and talk about the season finale, and we are so excited for our first guest. Cody, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys. Of course, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Cody, tell us a little bit about your role on Desperate Housewives. You played Zach Young, yes?
I did, yes, I did play the wonderful and very nice and very sane Zach Young on the first 3 seasons of Desperate Housewives, and then later in the 7th season when they resolved that storyline a little bit. And yeah, I mean, that was, I was 16 when that part came. I remember when I first received the copy of the sides for the audition, and it was just the 2 scenes that I had with Paul, where I was talking about the obituary. My mother killed herself. He didn't put in an obituary, and I was wondering why I did it. I remember my first feeling when I read this. I was like, this is really weird. It's like weird. Like that, and there was so much subtext, and it just came right off the page. It was just like this feeling, and it was like in that exact moment, I knew like this guy is weird. I mean, that's what he is, and so that was and I remember I had just been back from Australia. I had been working on a show down there, and it was really long days. We were working 15-hour days, but I got a lot of experience, and so when I came back that year to pilot season and to be back auditioning, I was really dialed in. I was really focused. I was on top of things, but that was the one project that really stood out. And the initial audition, I remember, was at the Buena Vista Studios in Burbank, and I was there, and I remember Nicolette Sheridan was there, and I thought, oh my gosh, she is so pretty. And my little 16-year-old mind, and we actually had a nice rapport in the audition room, and then just everything sort of came together.
What was it like for you hearing that you had booked the job?
I was like, yeah, I know.
Slay, love it.
No, incredible. That was the one project that year was really the one that I had put so much into, and was really, so I was just ecstatic, and from the first time that they had the cast together and we did the table read, there was just the understanding and the sentiment, like, we have something here. And I think that everybody knew it. I think the cast knew it. I think the studio knew it. And so it was just like one of those just really fantastic moments of synergy, and just knowing that we had something unique and something special.
Yeah, when you know. One of those.
Definitely. And we're so excited to have you because we love talking about Paul and Zach. Like, it is probably our favorite topic of conversation on this podcast.
I think we reference Paul and Zach's dynamic in every episode, even the ones that like you guys didn't make an appearance in. Like, we always find some way to bring it back to the Young family.
That's awesome. I think that their dynamic, their storyline particularly, it was just, I think with Mark Moses and I, we had a really strong, unique understanding and rapport between the two of us, where a lot of that stuff, which was really cool about Housewives, was that, it's a unfolding process where the Mark Cherry, the creator and the showrunner, and the writers were all sort of discovering what the show is as we were going along. And that really nice kind of odd dynamic that Mark Moses and I had, I really feel like informed a lot of what was the core of Desperate Housewives, where you had this really kind of glossy soap opera, which all this amazing, fun, kind of in a way campy stuff, but then you had this weird undertone and this weird thing. And so Mark and I mean, from the time that I worked on the show, I really enjoyed working with him. I don't want to say the most, but he was just, he's an incredible actor, Mark Moses.
Yeah, definitely.
All credit goes to him.
Oh, absolutely.
He'd probably say the same thing about you.
Oh, he better. I'll make sure he does.
One thing we noticed about this show, like watching it critically, like I've watched it so many times just on my own, but I feel like I focused so much on like the Susan and Mike storyline. I was like, where's Mike? Where's Susan? That I didn't really focus too much on like everything else, but seeing like the dynamics of everybody
Mm-hmm.
on the set and all like the main cast being like pretty at the time, like already like well known actors who like already had like a past. And then the younger cast was like a new mix. I feel like we don't really see that happen as well. And I feel like that definitely was like part of the magic of the show.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
You know, but but what's really interesting is that until that point, you know, we were all very young. I mean, I was 16 when the show started. Andrea Bowen was 14, 15. Sean Pyfrom was my age. She was 16 as well. We had actually, I mean, even though we were so young, we had already been in the business for 8 years, 9 years.
Mhm.
You know, Andrea had been on Broadway. She did Les Mis on
Oh,
Broadway.
wow.
Sean and I had known Sean Pyfrom, Andrew Van de Kamp. I'd known him for many years before that show had happened. So, yeah, I mean, you had your older cast who had certainly done, I mean, a huge body of work, and were known. But we did have just a really great group of already sort of veteran performers at that point. And
Mhm.
it's weird to say veteran at 60. I'm a veteran, but no, I mean, I had grown up in the theater and had spent 10 years in the theater before I
Yeah.
got into film and television.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just we had such a great rapport between all of us.
Was it sort of like a comforting thing for you to like know Sean going into it and kind of be like, oh, I already have a friend in here?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's so funny because the way that yes, of course. I mean, to answer your question, yeah. But you know, when you're young and you're like fighting for every job, you know, and Sean and I must have auditioned for these same roles for the last 5 years. I'd seen him at every audition.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's like you have this kind of like competitiveness. It's not like a real it is, but it's not. But it's like, you know, you want to get that part. And I remember there was a part on Seventh Heaven once that Sean, it was between Sean and Sean got, and I was so bitter about it. So, but no, that's all just kind of fun. You know, that's just kind of the fun stuff. Having that rapport, honestly, is crucial, and we all got along extremely well. So
What more can you ask for in that kind of setting?
nothing really. I mean, blessed, truly blessed to be able to do your life's work and have such an amazing platform and work with so many incredibly talented, not just through the cast, but in production and I mean everybody really. It's just it's great. It's incredible work.
Such amazing material to work with too.
Truly,
Every
yeah.
script
I
was
mean,
fantastic.
Mark Cherry, it was, yeah. Mark Cherry created something really special. I think a lot of people knew that
Mhm.
he had shopped that script around a lot. He had people interested, but I don't know that he had been turned down quite a bit. But it was just a script that now we had a guy I believe who was running the studio at the time, Steve McPherson, if I'm correct, who was the one who took the chance on Desperate Housewives because, according to him, when he read it, he said, this is going to be huge. This
Wow.
is going to be an amazing script." And all the credit goes to Cherry. I know that
Mhm.
this is his brainchild. That's the really neat thing I think about the work that you do when you tell stories and you work in cinema, you work in film, you work in television. You know, it's really about the people you're telling the stories for, and it's intimate, and people they spend many years with you, they grow up with you, they feel in a way like you're a part of their life, you're a part of their family, and that it's just that's I think one of which is interesting because it's for me as a performer, you know, my task is just to deliver that role, is to deliver that part. So I don't ever really think about the other side of it, of like the people who are the fans, the people who are receiving it. And really truly that's why we do what we do. We do it for people, we do it for that. So it's
I'm curious, is that sort of realization that you've come to more recently, or while you were on the show, were you kind of understanding of like, oh, I'm kind of a part of these people's lives, like I'm in their homes every week for 40 minutes?
yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, more recently.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, as I was saying, I had done a lot of work before then, and it was always just it was just the work. It was just something I loved. It was just performance, and it was just being there. And with Desperate Housewives, that was the one thing that uh, it was kind of, as we were shooting the pilot, it was kind of like the studio knew, the cast knew, everybody kind of had the sense that this is going to be really big. We kind of knew that. And then when we debuted at like with 30 million viewers at #1. And so it was almost in a way, Desperate Housewives was like an overnight success. So the things that kind of, everything sort of changed, but it was hard to contextualize that as a young person. I'm just like, I what do you mean I'm saying lines on a TV show?
Right.
You know, like I've been doing this for 8 years, you know, but as time has progressed and I've met so many people who have lived with this and seen the show for so long, and that's kind of when when I got the understanding that like, wow, like it really is significant to a lot of people. And that's kind of, for me as a person, when I understood the reason why we do what we do in the first place, which is we do it for people. We do it to entertain people. I mean, to make people feel something, you know?
Marvelous answer. Of course. It has been 20 years since the start of all of this, since Desperate Housewives aired.
Sure. Yeah.
And on this podcast, because it is Desperate Housewives, we like to offer our own moments of desperation from the week prior or just from recent history. So I'd like to open that up to either of you now to start off with, what has been your own personal moment of desperation recently?
Cody, why don't you kick us off?
Christy, would you like to? Oh, you and I have me kicking off.
Unless you need to think about it, yeah, I can start.
I actually do, because you know what? I don't feel desperate at all.
That's good.
I don't really have these moments. I mean, you know, my intense struggle with my mental health. No, I mean, gosh, I think that, Chrissy, I'm gonna football that one to you.
Okay, I'll take it because I have a big one. But basically, when we started doing this podcast, I think, and we like needed something in our minds now, at least to one of us, some like sitcom level ridiculousness has happened to us every week for the last 3 months that we've been doing this. It's truly something.
We've been doing this since July, Christy.
I know, and there's always something that has happened to us. Is that more than 3 months? I don't know. But my moment of desperation this week, guys, trigger warning if you don't like bathroom humor, because I sure don't, but this is something that happened to me.
Oh no.
My cat, if he ate something, I don't know, but he has had the runs for 2 days. And 2 nights in a row, he has woken me up at 3 a.m, pants dirty, the bathroom disgusting. And I've just been like, Cody, if you don't know, the last few weeks, I haven't slept great. I've had a lot of crazy things happen to me. I had a 48-hour day a couple weeks ago. And since then, I just haven't been the same. And I was really just starting to recover. And now the last 2 nights, I've had to clean up this cat. But he acts completely fine otherwise. Like, he's like, help, help, help. And then I try to clean him, and he's like, what are you doing? No, I want to play. So it's just been a lot of that. So right now he's locked up in my room, my bathroom. I made my mom help because I'm pretty sure she gave him spoiled food. But I'm quite exhausted.
You have to understand, Cody and listeners, that Christy's cat has a demonstrated history of doing things in places other than where he is supposed to do them.
Yeah, when Summer stays with me, he likes to pee on her bed. But only then. He just likes to send a message, I think.
He's sending a message. He sounds like a cat, I think.
Yeah. No, like...
Cats are naughty.
It was Summer and a couple of our other friends staying over, and one by one, he just knocked them out one bed at a time. Yeah. So...
Man, well, how's he doing now? Is he doing better?
He's doing better now. He's starting to firm up a little bit. But I just feel bad for him. And this happened to him last time he was in Vermont too. So I don't know if he just wants to get back to Los Angeles as bad as I do, but that's been mine. Summer, how was your moment of desperation this week?
Not nearly as humorous as yours.
If I liked to talk about toilet humor, I would go into more detail, but I hate it. So
No, I get it.
you're
Same.
not getting details from me this week, Desperate Housewives super fans.
I hear tofu in the back.
That's not tofu.
No, that's your cat. Wait, Cody, do you have a cat with you?
I was waiting to, because I'm gonna parlay your cat story into my cat story. So yes, I do. That's my cat, Nala, and she is. And I was gonna say that is actually probably my moment of desperation, was just yesterday, when I was here alone with her and I couldn't find her food. And she was screaming all day, and I felt so badly. I can't feed you. She has her dry food, but she's spoiled. She doesn't want the dry food.
Yeah, I get it.
And so there it is. That's my very simple moment of desperation. I couldn't
Oh.
feed Nala yesterday
Has she
what she wanted.
been satiated now?
Yeah, she's got everything. She's hooked up.
Oh, so do you travel with her when you go for the holidays?
No, she is here with my brother.
Okay.
So I just did some traveling for the last couple months, and he has been very nice to look after her,
Aw.
and it's actually really sweet that she is the most loved cat. My brother and his fiance, they have a stocking for her with her name on it, a little small cat
Aw.
stocking, and it's very cute.
I love that. Well, we're all cat people here, so I love that.
Now I wish my moment of desperation was about my cat, but unfortunately, it's just the fact that I awoke this morning at 3:10 a.m., bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and did not sleep a wink again until after 7:15. Could not tell you why. Just lay there, eyes open, head swimming with thoughts. Unfortunately, I got up, got out of the bedroom. I called my mom and she said, "You should do something productive." And I was like, "Yes, I'll clean the apartment." I look around, the apartment's clean. Why? So I didn't really have anything to do. I just waited to go back to bed.
Summer, were you scrolling on your phone?
Honestly, Cody, I put it off for as long as I could. There came a point at about 6:30 where I was like, time to doom scroll.
Yeah.
And it put me out.
That's what happened to me during my 48-hour day.
Yeah, I felt like you during the espresso martini debacle.
No bad days, honestly.
What is your astrological sign, your regular one, and then as the Desperate Housewives characters, what is your big three?
Oh, yes.
My favorite characters, is that what you're...
It's like, you know how you might be like an Aries sun and a Leo moon and a Taurus rising?
Oh, okay.
So for instance, like I'm a Susan sun with a Bree moon. Does that make sense?
With a Bree
And I'm
rising.
a
Yeah,
Gabby
okay.
sun, a Lynette moon. I think I'm changing it to an Edie rising instead of a Gabby rising.
I don't know that I know the astrology signs well enough to associate. Me personally, I'm a Leo. I'm a Leo with a Taurus rising. Okay.
Okay.
So that's me personally. Zach is exactly the same, because I have no idea when his birthday is.
Dang it.
And but I would say if Zach had a rising, it would definitely be Bree. I think he would definitely be. I think Zach really likes things in order, and I think he wants things to be okay. He wants things to be in little, and they did. This is an interesting story. They did try in the first season. They were developing a really extensive Bree and Zach storyline, and I think that when they looked at it, and I actually believe I spoke to you guys about this the first time we spoke, they kind of felt it was a little weird. I mean, Zach was weird, sure, but the whole Bree and him and thing was just a little bit. So they actually developed the character of George in place of that storyline, which I thought was really an interesting thing. But yeah, so Scorpio, definitely, yeah, Scorpio. Zach is very wild. No, I'm just gonna try. I think Zach would be a Virgo with a
Definitely a Virgo.
A male Virgo. Oh my God. So is
Just
Rex.
like Rex.
So is Rex.
We decided Rex was a Virgo.
Yeah,
so that makes sense.
Yeah. And with the Bree rising, whatever she is, I want to say probably Also a Virgo. He's a Virgo with a Virgo rising.
Honestly,
That's
I
dicey
would give
stuff.
Zach a triple Virgo for sure. Maybe some
Yes.
Gemini in there.
Do you remember if for the proposed Zach and Bree storyline, if like Zach would have been the one responsible for Rex's death at the end?
I'm not sure. I can see where that might have manifested. I don't know what they had in plan for that storyline. I really don't. I I can see that in mine. I mean, he might have been manic and obsessive and like whatever, which would have it probably would have caused a lot of contention. I think ultimately the George storyline is fantastic, and I
Yeah.
think that Roger Bart, just what an incredible performer, consummate actor, Broadway actor, theater actor, musical theater, just an incredible performer. He was one of my favorite, not only characters on the show, really he was, but also just people. He's just such a good, kind-hearted man. So I think ultimately they did the right thing by going with that storyline.
I remember you telling us about that, and I've like kept it in mind as we've continued to watch the season, and I have been holding my tongue to not tell the Desperate Housewives super fans. But in the last episode, there's this whole like montage of George like sneaking into Bree's house and like finding all their like sex closet stuff and like taking all these photos. And in my mind, I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
oh my
that's right.
God, what if this was Zach?
Right, yeah. So you can see there's shades of that in there,
Hmm.
and I do remember there is a scene that the only time I ever worked with Roger was when Carlos is going to jail and they have his going away party in their backyard, and there was just a quick cut. It was maybe 2 seconds, in the episode where both George and I are getting punch from the punch bowl, and I do remember I think I told you guys this. I do remember the way it was written. It said the two creepiest fucking dudes
Hmm.
in on Wisteria Lane getting punched together.
And it's so true. Again, we love discussing like really like far off the spectrum from normal characters, which is why we love talking about Zach, George, Paul, even though Paul, very normal, just misunderstood.
Well, I think part of that too is just like they're so interesting to talk about. Like these are characters, you could do deep dives on. Like we could have a
Sure.
whole episode dedicated to the mind of Paul Young, the mind of
Oh,
Zach Young, the
certainly,
mind of
certainly.
George. Like
Yeah, I actually just would like to do to add something to that. I think that when you look at the character of Paul, he was written as a bad guy. I mean, he was keeping this giant secret. He did steal a child from a drug addict woman. He did help cover up a murder. He did also murder another woman with a blender. He wasn't a good guy, but the nuance I think that Mark brought to it was that he was this tormented guy who was actually just, in a really awkward and strange situation. And he really, I think he wanted, and there was a likability that he brought to that character that I think that kind of transcended. And I see this. He's got like a lot of like Paul Young gets a lot of like love, man. People, I'm like, they forget. Is he a murderer? Yes, but he's a murderer with a heart of gold. Don't
Yes,
forget.
preaching to the choir. Because here's the thing is like, this is something I always thought, but for like our socials and stuff, I was like, I'm really going to like dive into this to like make people mad and like start some conversation, get some views. But people just agreed with me. I was like, Paul Young is innocent, free Paul Young. And all the comments are like, yes, I love him. He did nothing wrong. So I was like, wow, there's a
Yeah,
whole
and
community.
meanwhile, this poor, mentally unstable, abused kid continues to be the most hated character on the show. You guys are
yeah.
welcome. You're welcome. I honestly, I sometimes go into some blogs. I sometimes go to like a Reddit and see this stuff. Zach Young can get no love, and
Oh.
it's okay. No, he should be. He should. To be honest, for me, I think that there was a sympathetic aspect to that character, especially in the first two seasons. I think that when we got into the third season, when he was just kind of, in a way, there was just such a 180 with the character where he was kind of insufferable in a way, like the way he approached Gabrielle and I actually look back at that and I go, yeah, I mean, it is a kind of a non-sympathetic character at that point. So I understand.
But
How did you go ahead, Christy?
I will say, I think that's just a testament to your acting because as we've spoken now and gotten to know you, you're nothing like Zach Young. And
Right.
we know, and I'm sure you've come across actors who, like, you see them in a show and then you meet them and you're like, wow, they weren't acting, were they? That's just how they are. But when you can play a character that's just so not who you are and you make people like feel some type of way about it, that's when you know it's just pure performance.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I personally gravitate towards, yeah, just more of the sort of nuance and complexity of like these people, and love to deep dive and stuff. But there are aspects of Zach too, I mean, that were my own. I mean, that sort of Zach to me was kind of like he was the physical embodiment of like all of the awkward teenage insecurity
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
sort of like, I don't know who I am, I don't know what my place is, I'm gonna say the wrong thing. He's like, intrusive thoughts, when you're like having a conversation with someone and you're like, you think of the most absurd thing that you could say and you're like fighting yourself, like, what the, go away. Like Zach
Yeah.
was just completely intrusive thoughts. He just was the id for that. And in a way it was actually really therapeutic for me to sort of kind of like exercise all of that sort of feeling of teenage anxiety, and like that you don't know your place and you don't know who you are, and everybody hates you and you hate everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that's so that's that. And I think that every person, especially teenagers, feel that one way or another.
Absolutely. I was going to say exactly that, where we've all experienced feeling like Zach, being Zach, and then the times we don't, I feel like we'll like scapegoat somebody else as Zach to be like, oh well, maybe I'm not that bad. Like you project your insecurity onto somebody else and you pick out what's wrong with them, especially when you're younger, to be like, well, that person's worse off than I am.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's a universal experience.
Yeah, and it's like everybody tries so hard to not be who they are. Maybe they don't know who they are, and we're trying to fit in. We're trying to like be accepted or discover where we fit, who we are. And the one thing I did really like about Zach was that he was just, with exception into the third season, when it was a guy who was trying really hard to not be who he was. He was like going
Mm-hmm.
above. He was, and I remember that conversation I had with Mark Cherry when he brought me back into his office, and he said, literally, he sat me down, and I'll never forget. He sets me down, and looks at me, and goes, "So Zach's hot now." And I literally hit a wall. I'm like, wait, I'm like, wait, I'm Zach. We're talking about Zach. And so for my challenge as the actor was to figure out, how do I get Zach Young from the point that we know he from where he is, how do I get him here where you tell me he's hot? And the obvious answer to me was, well, he's not hot. He's just trying really fucking hard to be something that he isn't, and so he's actually even more awkward in a way than he was before.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It sounds like a challenge for sure. And you were talking about the nuance of the performance before, but I am curious as an actor myself, when you are faced with this character who can very easily become somebody kind of universally hated or picked on, what was your process like of balancing um, Zach being just that id with being like a real human person? Was it just tapping into like those insecurities we talked about, or like what were you flavoring it with to like round him out, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Initially, I think in the first season, in the second season, I had that process for me was just being in the space of Zach, which was like walking around. I mean, Zach came together for me when he had his little button up and he had his
Yeah.
little side part, and he had his glasses, and it was even
Oh,
and it was even down to the socks, like, and the penny loafers that he wore. It really, for me, when I'm in the space. And I don't know, it's like you could say, you could try to label it and call it method or whatever, but I think that when you're doing such a nuanced character, you have to remain in that space, because otherwise, when your setup is done and you're on the day and you're going to shoot, you're not going to really get the full depth of everything that's going on. So for Zach, it was just staying in that, like, I hate everybody, I hate everyone, and just awkward and insecure. And that was kind of the approach for that.
Do you know who had a very similar sentiment to that? Like, as you're talking about costume and like really feeling into that space, I can't wait to tell you this.
Who?
Do you want to guess?
Oh, wait,
Can I
someone
guess,
on
Summer?
Housewives?
No. Yes.
Can I
Wait,
guess,
can I
Summer?
guess?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you guess first. 'cause
We
I
can
can
both
guess.
guess.
I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess either Joaquin or Daniel Day or one of my favorite, Jack Gleason. But those are my three guesses. I don't know.
You could be right, but those were not the people I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Christy knows.
Alan Rickman.
Ding, ding,
Alan
ding.
Rickman. Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. What a fantastic actor.
Yeah,
I mean, I can understand that, definitely. And I don't know Alan's story so much, but I know that later in life, I think it was that he became an actor.
I could do another podcast with you on him alone, to be honest.
Summer
I know
loves
everything
Alan
there is to know.
Rickman.
Yeah, I just think that that's kind of like, so like if you're doing a theater production, you have 2 months to be this character. You have a static script. You have everything. The arcs of all the characters are there. It's been written. It's a piece that has existed for 50 years, for 100 years, for 500 years. It's a and so you get a certain amount of time and space to be in that. And when you're performing there, you're performing an arc in one night. You're performing in an entirety. So there is a sense of like you live in the space of it to do that. When you're doing television, especially, it's very segmented. You're shooting the middle first, you're shooting the end next, and then the beginning at the end. And it's in a way, it's like you have to really compartmentalize and know, like, be surgical with it, like know exactly, okay, this is this part that ties into that part that ties into this part. And also with television, you're playing moments and you're playing beats,
Right.
and that beat is going to lead to that and this, and you have to be aware of that stuff as the performer, but then not really, because when you're doing the scene, the character has no context for any of that. You're not thinking about this stuff. You're just being the character. So without living in the space of it, it's really hard. For me, it ends up getting really convoluted. And because as the person, like, okay, well, this means this, and this is going to tie into the third episode, which is going to tie into that.
Right.
And that's not really going to get an authentic performance. And I actually heard Tom Holland play Spider, obviously Tom Holland. He was speaking about his process, and he has all of his work that he's done, and he knows he's in the physical space of the character, but he doesn't worry about the lines until he is right in front of the camera.
Oh, wow.
And that way it's fresh and authentic.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of compartmentalizing in that sense. A lot of it.
A lot. Yeah. And if you thought about it, and if you sat and you carried the weight of that, you wouldn't, your performance really would be convoluted. And, so it's like, you know it and then not know it, if that makes sense.
I love it. I love like that sort of discussion. As an actor brain, just feeds my soul.
Should we kick off the episode? Okay, so we are in the not series finale, not for another few years. We are in the season finale of season 1, episode 23, I think. One Wonderful Day. And we finally get Mary Alice's backstory into why she got to Wisteria Lane. So we see her as Angela, and she says she was living a life of quiet desperation. And I love that as a callback to our podcast, Summer, because the word moment of desperation is like now in our everyday vernacular. So I felt like that was for us. Then we see Felicia being young and beautiful, and she's looking at a calendar with Fairview in it, and she says she has family there, which is very important.
And then we see there we see Brett Cullen, our detective. He was all chopped up. I love that line. I always say that line. Brett Cullen, fantastic actor, veteran. Is I mean, if you ever wanted to be impressed with anybody's IMDb page, it would be Brett Cullen. Very fine actor.
We'll have to get him on the pod. I actually loved this flashback. I thought it was like beautifully done, just cinematically speaking. Really enjoyed that. And obviously, from a narrative perspective, it's nice to finally start to see so many of these questions get answered.
And I liked how we only got like part of the story in the beginning too.
Obviously, you know, in 2004, 2005, I mean, we were shooting everything on film, and I just really, truly, as a cinephile, I just love the sort of weird, dreamlike quality that film is able to accomplish.
We see Mary Alice receive a surprise visitor. It's Deirdre holding a little baby, and she's being really belligerent, and she's like, "You're the only one at rehab who treated me like a person." She wants money. And then she does the unthinkable. She offers to sell her baby to Mary Alice, Angela, and Paul. And she's like, I know you talked about not being able to have kids. I know you want a baby. And Paul, for his part, is like, this is crazy. We're not doing that. And Mary Alice just slowly closes the door. And you can tell she's thinking about it.
I also loved how in this scene it was mainly between like Mary Alice and like druggy Deirdre, but then we just have Paul in the back just like interjecting 3 lines like, "Hey, that's crazy. We're not going to do that. Money, not food."
Well, I mean, it really does add so much information and it gives so much context to Paul as a person. Like he was in this situation. It wasn't his choice.
Yes, he never asked for this.
He didn't. He was just protecting his family. That's why he was an innocent man the whole time. Come on. Free Paul, free Paul.
My other thought is be a man, Paul, and kick this crazy lady out of your house.
I had that same thought, to be totally honest.
But you can see how he just changed after all of this happened, because before he was just like a dad-like figure with no kid. And he was just so happy, loved his wife, loved Salt Lake City. Do we think they were Mormons? Is this new backstory unlocked?
Ooh.
Summer and I love to create new backstories for all these characters, by the way. So now we've decided that in this podcast world, they used to be Mormon. That's crazy. I feel like that explains a lot now.
Mark Cherry is like, you can do whatever you want, just stop making extra
Mark
story
Cherry's
for my
gonna
characters.
give us a cease and desist and say, stop saying all of this is fact.
It's okay. We have Cody Kasch stamp of approval, and that's all that matters.
Hey, don't bring me into this.
And then, of course, we see this momentous moment. Sorry for the redundancy, where Deirdre is rushed to the hospital from the quote-unquote crack house. That is the way that the EMS or EMT put it, and it's a little jarring to see.
All the cops are like, where's the kid? He's probably in the crack house. And you see Angela / Mary Alice looking so nervous because she doesn't want her new baby, Dana, being taken away from her. So she just glances at the calendar that says Fairview. And then in the next scene, we see now Mary Alice, now Paul, and their new baby, who was now renamed Zach, at their house on Wisteria Lane.
I also love the detail. If you saw baby Zach there was in a button-up shirt all the way to the top. I never caught that detail before. That is
Wait,
that's
I didn't
hot.
notice.
That's so cute.
That's amazing. And then we cut to 3 years later, and Deirdre comes back looking clean, and then we will find out what happens at the end of the episode, because that's when we cut back to present day.
And everybody on Wisteria Lane, all the women are getting phone calls, and they hear that Rex is in the hospital, so they go over to the hospital to support Bree. And Bree is just like, don't give me the support. Don't be helpful right now because I'm going to lose it. And honestly, good on her for setting the boundary.
My question is, where were Andrew and Danielle? Like, we know Danielle called. She was being lucid and she called all her Bree's friends. But, like, where was. I feel like Andrew was kind of missing in this episode.
Well, Andrew can't get behind the wheel of a car again, right?
That's. Well, nobody knows what he did. So he can, technically. And then Susan starts going on a rant about Martha's journals. And Lynette is like, oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, Susan's very excited that she's found Mrs. Hoover's journal in Mike's possession. She's like a little too excited for somebody who is not out of the woods yet.
Oh, I mean, just that's some juicy stuff that's happening here in on Wisteria Lane. I mean, like, I would be invested too.
I know. Everybody's scared of those journals. She wrote every single thought she had.
There is never a dull moment. You know, Martha Hoover is arguably the, what was the girl's name? Hannah Baker of 13 Reasons Why. I don't know why I remember her name.
Wait, why?
Because she wrote about everyone. She had
Oh,
records
right.
of everybody.
Welcome to your tape. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Ari's like, don't see the connection. But Zach starts running out of the house. I said, it's funny how we're all cat people because this scene was giving cat to me a little bit. Like, just running, running, running. I'm going to my house. I'm going to my house. And Felicia's like, come back, come back, come back. And then he's like, no, I need to stay here. My dad's coming back. And Felicia's like, no, he's not. Your dad hates you, basically.
It is so understandable that Zach would have wanted to go back to his own house and his own bed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel so bad for this kid for so many reasons. I mean, he
Yeah.
just certainly was not in a good situation from the beginning. It was so confusing, and like these people, he has no idea what's happening, and obviously does not really have anybody looking out for his best interest except for this crazy woman who has no idea, cannot contextualize at all.
And all she's doing is separating father and son. Yeah, like a few episodes ago, Paul tranquilized Zach for the good of the neighborhood because Zach had just blown up Susan's kitchen.
Oh,
Do you remember committing that act, Cody?
that act of violence.
Yeah, that arson.
I believe that I do.
Yeah, so he was tranquilized, and that's when Felicia basically kidnapped him and then told Paul, you're never going to see your kid ever again. And then there was the whole thing. Paul tried to give him a baseball mitt with a little note that said, hey, meet me on the baseball field. But Zach had a meltdown because he doesn't like baseball.
He's more of a hockey fan.
Is that canon?
Is now.
Well, I mean, as you can see with his the way that he treats Felicia there at the end.
Wait, was that a hockey? I don't know sports. Was that a hockey stick?
That was a hockey stick, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Okay, yeah, I just saw some weapon. Yeah, he starts beating Felicia in the house. And we don't see any of that. We just cut and you hear Felicia go, ah, ah, ah.
Zach rightly wants to know what she did to Paul. He says, what did you do to my dad? I did write the note that I like seeing Zach upset over Paul because we have seen them up to this point have this very contentious relationship. And so to see him, I guess in a sense, it's like the concern of, if my dad's not here, what's going to happen to me? But then there is that level of concern of, well, where is he? Is he okay? And I liked seeing that sort of like compassion question mark come out of Zach.
It's his father. It's the only life that he knows. I mean, clearly very disturbed and does not have any of the actual help or support that would lead him to, be a normal person. I kind of see this. It's so interesting in the context of today. It's like, this is clearly someone who needs a lot of help, but instead of that, he just gets trashed on. So it's
Cody, how do you think the response to Zach's character and his situation and perhaps his mental struggles would be if this show were airing today?
I think, truthfully, I think that in today we have such a broader and just sort of a more accepting and understanding view on mental health and mental health struggles. And in one of the things that I don't particularly think that ages well is sort of the treatment that Zach actually gets from everyone. And that's when I see this, I'm just like, this is a guy his mother was murdered. He was kidnapped. He had this very weird and non-loving sort of contentious relationship with his parents, and his mother commits suicide. Then his father may have something to do with it, but he doesn't know, and he's hiding these secrets, and then he gets drugged and he gets kidnapped, and everyone's like, oh, but that's Zach, he's so weird. Well, I think that there's probably good reason for that.
And they never gave him or Paul time to grieve either, because it was like, oh, Mary Alice died, and then the next week they were like, oh, Paul and Zach are so creepy. I don't know why. It's like, maybe they're upset, guys. I don't know.
Christy, you'll appreciate this. Cody, have you seen Princess Diaries?
I know what
You
you're
know
about
what?
to
Actually,
say.
no, I've never seen that film.
Okay, well, I need you to watch.
Now
But
that you
there
have my
is
Disney
a
Plus,
scene in
I have to
there's a
watch.
scene in the very beginning when Mia, her father died, and she's riding the scooters with her best friend Lily, and Lily's like, "You're still upset about that? It's been like 2 months." And it's just the most out of pocket thing somebody could say to someone who has lost a person very close to them. And it's kind of the same with Paul and Zach. Like, why is nobody giving the sympathy that is due?
Television, baby, got to keep moving.
Except Carlos not going to jail for 7 episodes.
Speaking of keeping it moving, Christy, why don't you take us into the next scene?
Let's see. In the next scene, we meet the Applewhites, and Edie goes over, and she's basically like, "Hi, like I've never had anybody sell a house, buy a house sight unseen before. Like, let me show you around." And they're like, "No, you cannot come in here ever." She's just like, "Okay." That's
Yeah.
so weird.
Alfred Woodward, what a consummate and incredible actor. She's so good. She is just, it was such an addition to the show. The Applewhite storyline was just this new season, and they brought in this storyline, and she just nailed it. She is such a fantastic actor. She is such a good person too.
In the last episode, she had no lines, was just in the last scene, but she got a special guest star credit or billing, and I was like, that's amazing, like as she should.
And in the next scene, we see Susan relentlessly calling Mike. She wants to know about Mrs. Hoover's journal. My note says she's so unhinged. She's crazy. She goes, I know all about the blackmail. And Mike's not picking up. And she really wants to have an in real time conversation with him. So when he returns her call from what is an undisclosed location, Susan suggests giving the journal over to the police. And Mike's a little hesitant, but he's like, yeah, sure. Okay, that sounds good. And we just pan and see Paul with his mouth duct taped in the back of Mike's car. It's almost a little like cartoon, like caricature-ish in the way that was done.
And you gotta love those flip phones too. I mean, if that doesn't date it.
We always say
Gotta
the
love
only
Mike's phone.
thing that really dates the show is the technology, but like everything else kind of is so timeless.
Right, yeah. And now we have Carlos here in his jumpsuit.
Gabby comes over to testify, or she's saying she's going to testify, and he goes, beating up 2 gay guys looks really bad. And Gabby goes, beating up anybody looks really bad. So she was kind of like, all lives matter a little bit. I was like, Gabby, this is about a homophobic hate crime. Like, okay. She's not the LGBT icon like Rex, gotta say.
Rex is in a league of his own.
Is he really? I didn't realize. Is he?
Oh,
Cody.
listen, we've decided.
No, there's lore
we
here.
have lore about Rex. We've really gone on a journey with this character, but he is a pillar of the LGBTQ community in Desperate Housewives. Like when Andrew comes out, Bree's freaking out, and he's like, "No, let him live. Like, he's our son. We love him." And we were like, "Wow, we didn't expect that out of Rex."
Rex is the definition of ally. He invented allyship.
did.
Oh, Stephen Culp, what a great actor, what a great performer. That character of Rex, it's such a awesome relationship with Brie. That was some of my favorite stuff on this show. A lot of that was, directly. Brie was based largely on Mark Cherry's mother, and Andrew was kind of like a sort of an extension in a way of Mark Cherry as a teenager. And Stephen Culp, who plays Rex, he just brought so much to that character, and it was I was so bummed when Rex did the deed and got when George did the deed and got him out. But what a great actor.
Absolutely. I'm sort of, I don't know about you, Christy, but I'm sort of thinking, what are we going to talk about?
I was thinking that too.
With no Rex in season 2.
I love talking about Rex. Like, I'm sad, but we'll get there. So wait, we were still with Gabby.
No, I do believe we're with Gabby. I do believe he does come back in some of the seasons, right? In flashbacks, they do bring him back.
Yes, but it won't be the same to rag on this character who started out, we believe, a raging misogynist and just turned into this wonderfully understandable, trustworthy husband.
We've been on a journey with him over the last few months for sure.
Well, there was also sort of the undertones of Rex too, where like maybe it wasn't necessarily him being an ally or being supportive, but there was an aspect of his character where he did love to subvert anything that Brie did as well. So
that's true.
That's a great point.
It's a really good point. Wait a minute. We might have to take away we might have to delete the Rex gay flag post, because that is a very solid point.
Gabby is telling Carlos how she is going to make him do all of the work for the upcoming baby, as she should. She's like, you're going to be the one getting up in the middle of the night, and you're going to change the diapers, and you're going to do this. And suddenly, Carlos is not so keen to have a child anymore.
I'm just obsessed
good
with
for
this
you, Carlos.
because...
I support you. Your two-timing wife.
But here's the thing. She's using this, she's saying she's lying to having an affair. She's like, okay, I'm gonna lie and say I have an affair, but you have to do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, wow, the woman in STEM, she really knows how to work it, because she's simply gonna be telling the truth on the stand, in which Carlos thinks she's gonna be lying for her and committing perjury. But
right, really, if you look at the character of Carlos, he's a great husband. Like, I mean, he supports this woman undyingly. He provides her this incredible life. He gives her everything. And for a guy who is as, macho as he is like really patient with her. Like,
Cody, he used slave labor.
He did also switch out her birth control. That's
my issue with Carlos.
Oh, okay. So slave labor is a no-go. Respectfully, it's a no-go. But Paul, who murdered Huber with a blender. You know what? We forgive him. He went through a lot.
That's different.
He went through a lot.
I'm crying. Tears check.
Listen, we have
priorities, guys.
Some morals, okay? We have a little bit of morals. And the slave labor is one thing, but he messed with Gabby's birth control. And that's where we draw the line. Murder is fine, but messing with a woman's medicine is not.
I know, banging your 17-year-old gardener, that's okay. That's fine. 7 outside of marriage. You know what? She deserved that.
She did.
Okay. So I keep saying
the house wasn't big enough that Carlos got.
I keep saying that this storyline obviously would not fly today, especially if you consider the switching the genders. My God, I don't even want to think about it. So I think Gabby is in the wrong for that. With that said, nobody's innocent.
With that said, have you seen Jesse Metcalf? Come on.
Actually, Cody,
we have seen and met Jesse Metcalf.
Oh, you have met him. Oh, okay. Well, you know what's funny? Originally, when we shot the pilot, there was another actor that was cast as John, and we shot the entire pilot with him.
Oh,
And he played a little too young. The character of John was supposed to be 17, but Jesse clearly does not look 17. He looks like and I guess ultimately they felt like it's a little weird if the kid actually looks 17.
that's
Like
my point
so that
exactly. And this is why somebody needs to give me a development job at Disney. If anybody listens, I've been saying this. Anyway,
Yeah, you have said
that
that
is
from the
just my
beginning.
professional rant. But I said that episode 1. I was like, that's why I don't have a problem with it, because they look the same age.
yeah, that was an intentional
Yeah.
choice by ABC.
So, what happens, Cody, when you shoot a whole pilot and then somebody gets recast?
Well, that person who gets recast, he goes home and he cries a lot. No, I don't mean to be flippant
I
with
would
that,
cry.
but it is hard because it's a very hard process to get cast. It's a very hard process to end up on a show, and then to have a show be as successful as it is, obviously, is another thing altogether. And so for anybody, like you think that your job is secured, but especially on a show like Housewives, I mean, we get scripts and it's like we just flip through the scripts like, am I dead?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah.
dead? And that's kind of the life of an actor. You're never really in a position. You're kind of, unless you're the big guy, the big star who, is bringing the draws, bringing all the money. It's a rough. It's so I really feel um for my peeps. We just try to make a living, man.
No, I'd be really, really sad to be recast off of Desperate Housewives.
And then you got the whole like Aunt Viv situation.
Oh, yeah. Do you ever watch Fresh Prince?
Of course he did. He's older than
Just
us.
making
No
sure.
offense, Cody.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! How old do you think I am?
You're 36 because we talked about it on the call.
Right, yeah. So of course, child of the '90s. Of course, Fresh Prince was big. And honestly, I don't know that I even remembered noticing that she was replaced. I believe the last few episodes of Family Matters also replaced the Carlo's wife. What was her name? But in any case, yeah,
Oh wow.
that's just the kind of that's the kind of reality that we live in, and it's a little unnerving to know that at any moment that's the way that it could be. I mean, just in regards to the Young family storyline, it was a pivotal part of the Desperate Housewives sort of mystery, and unraveling the relationship between Mary Alice and the other women and how that came to be. And Mary Alice would of course narrate every episode of the 8 seasons that we did, but then sort of the Youngs disappear again until the 7th season. And so it's nothing is ever guaranteed. And I know as an actor, it is not an easy profession. Even if you have a job and you have something that is in the moment, like, great, I'm on the show, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to be working. There's no guarantee that you are going to be in that same position just in a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult, it's a labor of love, really. It just, you have to really truly be dedicated and love it.
Of course. And then, you got everybody shouting, make your own work, make your own work, which is great in theory because then you're always employed. And then it's just a matter of getting your own work to that point of commercial success.
Yeah, it's a labor. It's really it's a lifetime. When I was 21, I had done a lot of work, and I had to come to terms with myself to be, even if I don't experience any sort of large level of success in that way or not, regardless of that, I'm still dedicated to the work. And so you just kind of I think about it like in terms of a lifetime, like from the time I was 10 to the time I'm going to be 75 years old. And, it's a giant arc and of a lifetime of a body of work. And where do you fall on that arc? Where are you? Sometimes you're going to be doing really amazing projects. Sometimes you're going to be making the worst war film that was ever made, that I made a few years ago. um, you know
We gotta see
no,
it.
you really don't, and I recommend anybody to never watch that film.
We have a
But
web
that's just the case,
series like
and you
that.
never know these things because
Yeah.
yeah, well, you never know. Sometimes you can put together
Mm-hmm.
so much talent on every side. You can put together incredible actors, good writers. You can put together a great cinematographer and some incredible producers and directors, and still something doesn't, one aspect or another, it doesn't mesh. Or, and then even if it does, even if you do create an incredible piece of cinema, an incredible television, it doesn't mean that people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
oftentimes some projects that are absolutely absurd become really popular. you,
Don't get me started.
and so it's kind of like, you don't, there's no way of knowing. And you, as the person who's like, this is my life and this is my life's work and what I've chosen to do, you just have to be okay with that, and just be like, look, well, we're still gonna do it, you know.
Gotta keep a positive mind with literally anything. Anything in this industry, really. Okay, so Lynette takes the kids to lunch and she sees Tom playing air hockey with a bunch of kids. And he just like the look in his eyes, it's like he just looks derailed, like he's done, like he's clocked out. And this is how she finds out that he quit his job.
Yeah, that's a rough way to find out in the middle of the mall arcade.
But
But
seeing him
I
with a bunch of
love
kids is so fitting. It just
Tom, I love
works.
Doug Savant. I love their relationship. They're one of my favorite storylines. I think that they, regardless of the what they have and to deal with in terms of like balancing having careers and also raising family, their relationship, I just, it's like the poster relationship for, I just think there's just fantastic.
Okay, I agree with you. And people on the TikTok, and I think the younger people watching the show, like they hate Tom. They're like, he's a terrible husband. And I'm like, guys, I think that this is the most
Totally
realistic.
disagree.
I do too. I think
It
that's
is, yeah.
the most realistic couple on the show, and like they're kind of like the anchor. And also the storylines that they've been given this season, we've noticed they're not particularly like the most exciting or the most like story driven ones, but they're the ones that really just like bring the show back down. Cause like you have this murder, 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 and then you have Lynette being like, I need to get a nanny. And that's really what like keeps it
Yeah.
at a good balance.
Yeah, it does. It grounds it really well, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it is a fair portrayal of like just that struggle that we have when balancing a family life and also being ambitious and wanting to have these big careers. And that's why I think that Tom is a great husband. I mean, he makes those sacrifices, even though he is a provider, and he allows Lynette to be able to follow her dreams also, and so it's just that she's clearly, I mean, Felicity is one of the most talented actors I've ever worked with. She is really
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. And when she gosh, I believe she won in our first season. She won the Emmy for her role as Lynette. And just her body of work. She's married to
Mm-hmm.
William H. Macy, and what they have done, continuous dedication to theater, and their connection with one of my all-time favorite playwrights and film directors, David Mamet. It's just such a consummate body of work that they do, and I particularly love their storyline because it does ground Desperate
Mm-hmm.
Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That and to your point, Cody, about Tom being a good partner and a good father, we're about to see that really kick into high gear, because I think part of the reason there's a lot of Tom conflict or a lot of like Tom hate is because in season one we've seen him be very like work oriented and wanting to really kind of keep his lives at home and at work separate, but we're about to see him take the reins in a new way. And so in this scene, Lynette wants to talk about everything going on at home and why did Tom quit. And Tom's just like, nope, I'm going to hang out here.
And then he's like, "Go
He's like, you're
home,
the one
Lynette."
that, yeah.
I
Yeah,
to
he
me, yeah,
knows
and
that.
as a man, like I think that that's just honestly that's a really noble sacrifice. Like I to be have the responsibility really as a house dad, like that, as a man, like that's not. necessarily that easy, especially in this world that like
Mm-hmm.
judges you by the your status and what you have and don't. And just yeah, I think that I love their storyline.
I agree. And I think when he's like out working being the breadwinner, he's just not living his truth because he doesn't want to do that. Lynette wants to, and we will see that. Can't wait. I really loved him in this
He gets
episode.
along so well with kids. That's why
Take
when
care
he's
of his
randomly playing
own.
air hockey with these strange these strange kids, I'm like, Tom loves this. This is him in his element.
Yeah.
Um, so we're excited to see more of them. But in the next scene, we're gonna bring things back down a little bit. We see Rex and Bree at the hospital, and this is really what I like to call Rex's redemption
Mm-hmm.
arc because he apologizes for everything, and I just thought it was so sad.
And it really brought into my point that I made a few episodes ago where there's this trope I've noticed in TV, where it's like when a character that has been written to not be liked, when they're about to die, they get redeemed. So then you will be upset. And that's exactly what we see as Bree's just talking about the spring cleaning. And he's like, no, I notice everything about you, actually. I got a little sad.
Yeah. My
Yeah,
heart was
ultimately,
heavy.
you want resolution. Everybody wants it, and I don't think that any of these people are necessarily wrong for having any type of contentious things in their relationship. I mean, I hadn't rewatched these episodes for a very long time, and going back when seeing that, I remember thinking from a young person's perspective, watching that Brie Vandekamp was a bit insufferable, as not insufferable in the way that she was like a like she was a difficult person or a bad person, but just that you feel like you're living in a Stepford commercial, and so there's but in rewatching it and from a different perspective now, I'm 36. Like it's like she's a really wonderful wife, and it's you kind of understand both of the sides of it. Why Rex was frustrated, and it's just really good. It's just really well done. It's well done writing.
That's so funny that you say that because that's exactly my perspective on this show. When I watched it the first time and I was like 15, I was like, Bree's so annoying. Oh my God, I would never want her to be my mom. And then the more I've watched it, now I'm 27 and I watch it and I'm like, she was doing her best. She was being an amazing mother. She literally did nothing wrong. She just didn't want to show her emotion and that's it. But yeah, the way that these characters can just, you see them so differently in different parts of your lives. Love
Yeah,
reflecting on Desperate
definitely.
Housewives.
Look,
Okay.
I would love the meals that Brie Vandekamp puts on that
N-
table.
That's what we are
Are
saying.
you kidding me?
That's what we're saying.
Duck confit?
Duck confit. And Rex just wants to eat a burrito out of the microwave. Like, come on, be grateful.
Rex is what I have, Brie is what I want.
Wow, so true. Okay, but the one thing about this scene is Brie goes, "Let's just say we're even," and I'm like, okay, I don't think that hanging out with the creepy pharmacist is the same as like asking for a divorce and being like, I actually don't want to get a divorce and having an affair and all the other things that Rex did, but that's just my opinion personally. I don't think that they're even at all.
But if it's going to put her mind at ease,
That's
then
what
we
she
let it
needed, I
be.
guess.
Well, I mean, regardless of where anybody finds themselves in difficult situations in lives and in relationships, like you still love this person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we deal with on a daily basis with our loved ones, whether we're in dysfunctional relationships or we have problems with our family, which we all do. The fact of the matter is that you do love them, and especially if you're realize that you're going to lose somebody, that's obviously where you prioritize the things that mean the most.
Cody, this is like so heartwarming. Like I really enjoy having this other perspective, especially I guess a male perspective, but in general, because usually Christy and I are like, yep, 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 laugh, 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 laugh. And it's really nice to like bring some grounding in a sense. Like you are right now the Tom and Lynette to our murder story.
To our Paul and Zach.
Little Zach Young. Come on now.
We're gonna see little Zach Young soon.
But you know what the thing is that you just in respect to Bree and Rex, like you can see that Rex really does love Bree. You know, and he just wants this facade, this like I need a human being here. You know, like I feel totally disconnected from you.
I guess I get that perspective a little bit. It is good to have a male perspective here, I guess. Because we're just here like, terrible husband. We hate Rex. We hate Rex. Be nice.
In fairness, I this is Desperate Housewives, and the narrative of this show is told from their perspective. And the men on the show are sort of kind of revolving parts in their story, which is really cool. It's really unique, especially for primetime television in the early 2000s. Like to which is, I think, one of the reasons why the show did land as much as it did was because it gave a voice to the quiet desperation of, you know, your average mid-America housewife that never really, it was always from the male's perspective. You know, it was never really from theirs. And so that was one of the cool and unique things about this show.
Yeah, always doing stuff that nobody else was doing and stuff you would never expect, but in the best way. So that's part of the reason it's been really fun to recap all of this in our older age now, because as a kid you think one way, as an adult you think one way, as a man you think one way, as a woman you think one way. So like blending all of this together has been very insightful. So I'm eager to continue.
Oh no! I was gonna say, from my perspective, I wouldn't deal with any of these women. I tell them all to go away.
You tell them to take a hike. Sorry, I think Christy's got a little bit of a delay on her end because Vermont.
Oh yeah, I think that's maybe a bit of an issue, but figure it out, I guess. Okay, and then so Julie is staying with Carl for the weekend. Finally, we see Carl return. And Carl is making fun of Mike, and he's like, I can't believe the plumber is moving into your house. And Julie's like, leave him alone, Dad. Mike's a cool guy.
And I like having him around.
Right. I mean,
she's right.
Insecure much?
Oh, for sure. But we also love to say that Susan loves blue collar workers, because we see Mike the plumber, and then there was one episode where she was going out with like the construction guy. So I love that this was kind of, again, a little callback to our podcast. So it's like he just keeps calling him the plumber, the plumber, the plumber, and that's it. And then we also find out that Susan is taking care of Bongo while Mike is just mysteriously on his like long plumbing trip. So she goes over there. She goes over there to take care of Bongo, and she is greeted by Zach coming around the corner. And I will say this was a jump scare for me, and I did jump. I have that in my notes.
Zach is looking particularly disturbed here. But he's got a little taste of violence now. He's beaten up Felicia here, and so now he's like, fuck it, balls to the wall, let's go. I'm getting mine. And you know what? This kid's got to stand up for himself. No one else is. This kid's got to stand up for himself. Like, what is actually going on with this guy? Someone's got to stand up for him.
Yes. And to that end, how did he get into Mike's house?
Well, it was probably unlocked because they were moving.
Oh.
So he just walked right in.
Okay.
And that is, I'm going to just say it, that is a bad German Shepherd. Bad boy, you're gonna let this clearly deranged guy. No, I'm just gonna chill there. It's like that's the consummate guard dog that will like rip your throat out. Like, what is that dog doing?
He was trained a little too well.
Why did Bongo?
Bad dog. Bongo.
Why did Bongo not go after Zach?
Right, because he's clearly menacing. right? He's clear. I mean, like he's
This is an intruder.
My little
Intruder.
4-pound poodle would have done more than this. I didn't even realize this. We see Bongo in the corner and then not again. He just sits there.
he even has the German shepherds scared of him. Way to go, Zach.
But while Zach is holding Susan hostage, Edie comes knocking to alert the neighborhood about somebody who has attacked Felicia. And she's like, Susan, I see you in there. But Zach's like, no, you can't open the door.
You know what? There's some really cool shots in this sequence. Some really great camera work.
So I'm sure you've never held anybody hostage, but
Well, the first time I did that, I'm just kidding. No, I've not.
No, it just was there anything in particular kind of going through your mind of like, this is a big deal scene now, like stakes all the way up here, while you were doing this particular sequence?
I think that there was a sense of during this season, there was a sense that I had that because of the fact that the Young family was kind of used very sparingly, to sort of kind of give that mystery and that weird sort of what was happening, that as an actor, I often found that I was sort of kind of playing the same scene over and over again. And if I remember, this was finally like the, accumulation of those 2 years that we had been doing that. And so this was finally like the moment of, everything was coming to this head. And I don't really recall exactly how I approached it, but I do remember that it was, for me as a performer, it was one of obviously my favorite times on this show.
Yeah. Super cool. I have a quick little game since we have Zach in the scene here. And I have just thought of it now. So if you hate it, we don't have to play. But Cody, I want to do if Zach was a ... And I will name a category and you give me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
You want to try?
Well, sure.
Okay, so if Zach Young was ... an animal.
Jackal.
A plant.
A poisonous orchid.
Day of the week.
Wednesday.
Fast food item.
Soggy fries.
Genre.
Mystery thriller.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay, cool. I just wanted to see what we could come up with.
Some associative thinking there. Sure. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I should note that Zach, in that time 20 years ago, was such a different person than who I was. And now that 20 years has passed, completely different. So there is a sense of like, I'm also rediscovering all of this as well. And it's interesting for me to like make, oh yeah, like that was me. And I did that, because it does in a way, a lot of times when I shoot something or work, and I know a lot of other actors feel that way, you kind of like, you do it and you just put it behind you, and you don't kind of revisit it, at least for a while, because there's too much of a closeness and it's hard to have that separation between this is a show. And regardless of the fact that that's you, that it's hard to kind of disassociate from that a little bit. But now it's really interesting to get to do that.
Wait, would you ever do like a reboot? Oh, wait, I just have a really good idea. If they like rebooted Desperate Housewives with like Zach moving back to the lane as an adult, because they always say no reboot, no reboot, but that would be kind of amazing.
Okay, so I have from a business standpoint, obviously you have this title that is very popular and brings a lot of weight to it, and so there have been talks about a reboot. That have kind of maybe come up here and there and kind of been thrown around. Maybe they've fizzled a little bit. And interestingly, I don't know that Zach would be someone who would come back, but I had thought about it. And what's really interesting is a lot of the actors on the show, the younger actors, Sean Pyfrom and Andrew Bowen, Joy Lauren, myself, and even the young actor who played young MJ, um, and just a very objective way, they all kind of aged very nicely. And there is a there would be an incentive, I think, to have a show that kind of would keep them as the nucleus.
How would you feel about a totally unofficial, like Fever sponsored cardboard setup in Central Park where, you know, the Desperate Housewives actors just come on and they get paid to just pretend they're on Wisteria Lane, but everything's made of cardboard.
How much cold medicine, Summer, have you been taking exactly?
So much.
If you go back to our episode titled Sister Wives of Wisteria Lane, Summer came up with this whole business model that we would put up a fake Wisteria Lane in Central Park and make all the actors come back, and as Summer explained, you pay and they can do whatever you want them to do.
All right, that's called OnlyFans. And you know what? Let's go. Let's go.
Tears check. Can you guys see my tears?
No, I can't see your tears, thank God.
You're in like 400p right now, so.
Yeah, so Zach is holding Susan hostage because he says he needs to kill Mike now because Felicia somehow told him as he was beating her with what is now we know is a hockey stick that Mike has gone off to find and kill Paul. So now he thinks his dad's going to be dead and he in turn has to murder Mike.
Reasonable thought process.
I get it a little. I will say, it's like if you think this guy is about to kill your dad and you have that in your mind already, and I guess I get it. The chain of murder.
I mean, it's not, I mean, I do believe that, you know, Zach doesn't really have, especially at this point, a very linear thought process.
Yeah.
You know, he is more of as we were saying, he's more of an id, he's more of an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, and at this point it's just confusion and anger, really.
Yeah. Do you think the confusion is what kept him from pulling the trigger so far on Susan?
No, actually, I actually don't think that Zach ever even intended on any of that. I think he just was having a literal emotional breakdown. And I don't think he wanted any of that at all. I think the guy just needs help.
He also takes everything out on Susan. Like, Julie breaks up with him and he goes, I'm gonna burn down Susan's kitchen. Mike is killing his dad. I'm gonna put a gun on Susan.
Look, man, don't stand between Zach and his woman, okay? Burn that house down.
So then we get
but let's contextualize here. Why did Susan want Julie liked Zach? Zach liked Julie. What did Zach ever do except for be Zach? Nothing. So you're gonna tear these people apart, like and especially, by the way, you burnt down Edie's house. Did we forget this? Like you've done some like really messed up things yourself. What did Zach do except for be an awkward 16-year-old? Let's ask that question.
I will say,
God, this guy's mom just died. Oh.
Zach doesn't help himself. Whenever he's told no, he has a meltdown.
No, like, that's what I was saying. He does make it very easy. He makes it very easy to be in that, for other people to see him as that in that position.
Well, he doesn't know how to regulate his emotions, arguably, and we'll see why. But
like consider so there's a scene, and I don't remember quite what episode it is. It was the audition scene for Zach, and it was when Paul and him are at the breakfast table, and he says, I looked for an obituary and I didn't see that you put one in. Why didn't you put one in? And I didn't get around to it. I don't remember what Paul's response was, or something like that. And if you just analyze that small bit. I mean, this is a kid who's mourning for the loss of his mother, who just committed suicide. He's trying to come to terms with understanding why this happened. He has no idea why it's happened. And all he knows is that his dad not only didn't put the obituary in, but won't even talk about it.
Right.
You know, so it's a very, obviously does not have the emotional maturity. I mean, obviously he's a teenager. Your brain is, you know, what it is, but he's not getting any support from anybody.
Agree. And I think also Paul, like his grieving is he just goes a little inwards. So he was like, I just want to be by myself for a second. And then that came off as him not being a caring father, but he was the whole time.
Right. Which is why, if you remember, there's a scene between Paul and Zach where Zach is, he's on the floor. He's found the murder weapon, or the suicide, the gun that Mary Alice uses to kill herself. And he cannot understand why this is sitting in a drawer just so carelessly, and Paul offers zero explanation for it. And so it's just this sort of accumulation of events, you know, and when we start to understand Paul, and honestly, total testament to Mark Moses' acting, you know, like, as you notice, the reason why he's so inward is dealing with this giant weight and secret that he sort of just let his wife get him into. You know, and so that's why he does, you know, Paul does become a sympathetic character in a way, even though he murdered a woman with a blender, and I'm gonna just keep saying that.
But
okay,
it was
because
for the good of the
it's
community.
season 7, Paul's back. Hey. Oh, Paul,
Okay.
we don't care you murdered this woman.
Cody, nobody missed Martha Hoover.
It was for the good of Wisteria Lane. She was up in everyone's business. He was a vigilante.
Paul has done more for the community than Carlos has. Yet nobody's putting Carlos out to pasture for his slave labor.
Look, I mean, what businessman has not engaged in a little bit of sweatshop here and there? You know, I mean,
a little bit of sweatshop is crazy.
I mean, that's just kind of that was the deal. My perspective on that is. I mean, obviously, you can't compare the ills of or the wrongs of two different people and say, well, he did this, and so, you know, and again, we are talking about television here, and we do what's entertaining and what keeps people watching, you know. But if you tried to put it into real life, I mean, and I think that's one of the problems with a lot of film and cinema in that way, is that one of the things that we love as an audience, right? We love justice. We love to see the bad guy get his. We love to see, you know, who are our heroes, right? We love Batman. Who is Batman? He's an entitled billionaire who takes justice into his own hands and beats the shit out of people, and like,
he's a capitalist.
And, like, Paul, and goes around. He's a vigilante. He goes around, does whatever he wants with zero consequence for it, right? And this is a trope in all of American film, and it really, at the core of it, it starts with, if you guys think about it, it starts with the Western picture is like, probably, especially for 50-60 years of American film history, was like the most pivotal thing in America, and it really shaped the identity of like the American man. And what is that? It's like, there's this lawless place and everything's fucked up, but I know what's right, and even though I'm a little rough around the edges, and I'm kind of an asshole, I'm the anti-hero, I'm going to come in and I'm going to lay down the law, and it's going to be me who's going to do it. But in real life, if you punch the bad guy, you go to jail for assault, you know. So that's the real world that we live in, you know. So there's kind of this odd disconnect where it's like, we want to see the justice, we want to see the bad guy, we love it so much, but like, maybe not so much in real life.
Great point. Juicy, delicious point.
Speaking of which, we have Carlos on the stand for his gay hate crime, and basically Gabby's on the stand, and she's like, okay, well, basically, when he got convicted, and the judge is like, he hasn't been convicted for this yet, and she goes, no, his other crime, like, he was convicted for a different crime. He started getting really jealous, and that just made me laugh. He's just getting really jealous, and I led him on to think I was having an affair because he was being annoying, and she specifically says he's an angry, jealous Neanderthal, but he's not a gay basher.
I'm just gonna say this. I love Eva Longoria. Truly, she is a genuine, good, smart, caring, very positive human being. I have nothing but amazing things to say about her. I hate Gabrielle Solis.
I was not expecting that.
Literally just gonna say that. This is
Why? She's so charming.
She is the worst person on Wisteria Lane. The absolute. I don't care what Zach has done. I don't care who's been beaten up with a hockey stick. I don't care who's been murdered with a blender. That is the worst human being on Wisteria Lane.
Cody! Okay, say more.
Yeah,
maybe I should have said less. Is probably what I should have done.
No, we love it.
She's
this is
vapid.
What we need.
She's vapid. She's manipulative. She's shallow. She's a liar.
Yeah, so is Christy, but I still love her.
Well, I'm sorry. Our society and our values have been ruined by 15 years of the Kardashians. Excuse me that we think that that's normal.
No, you're right, and you should say it.
Wow, I'm at a loss for words right now. But she is in a loveless marriage at the moment. She does what she has to do. She had a bad background. She needs to survive. She's a survivor.
You know how they do presidential debates? Like they have the Republican and the Democrat on either side, and they have the moderator. One day, we're going to have a live studio, and I'm going to have Christy on one side, Cody on the other side, and I'm going to be the moderator.
Debating all the characters.
And we're going to just have you guys debate Gabrielle Solis for the entire 2 hours.
But listen, I also love hard opinions, and this is what we need on this podcast. So please keep going. This is a pro-opinion podcast.
I do think, again, that was a testament to the really good writing of the show, which was to, again, you're telling it from the perspective of Gabrielle. So, you understand why, or you understand her, her process, you understand exactly all those things. And if you were telling it from a male's perspective, she would look like a manipulative, lying scumbag. But you understand why. And that's where you get the nuance of characters. That's where you get good, not black and white writing, right? Because human beings, we're not black and white. We're not good. We're not bad. We're none of those things. We're just, a lot of us do the wrong things for the right reasons, or we do the right things for the wrong reasons. I mean, it's gray, and that's kind of like, so to have a, opinion about someone, so hard. I think that my only point of contention is that because it's told from the perspective of the women, and I watch it, I'm like, why are all these girls getting these passes to do this? Like, what is going on here? Like, this is not normal behavior. Like, forgive this 16-year-old mentally ill kid who can't, get anybody to love him, but he must be the bad guy. Well, let's make him the bad guy. Like,
we have all
Carlos,
the same opinions on pretty much everything.
He's having his thing. His wife is ruining his testimony. Okay, ruining it. She's making him look horrible. And then you got Loverboy comes in. It's like, I did it, right? And then Carlos flips out, right? As you would, as a man's like, yo, fuck you fuck my wife, like, cue Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, you fuck my wife. Right, but the context of the scene is that Carlos looks bad, right? Because he reacted like a dude would react, and he looks bad.
But okay, I also will say this is another point where I'm like, where's Andrew right now? Because his gay lover is on the stand, just got beat up by the man whose mom he killed. So I feel like he should have shown up.
He is as far away from that courtroom as anybody could possibly. Showing up would be the worst possible thing for that sniveling.
Sniveling is
season
crazy.
1. I think Andrew's the worst character on this show. He's mean.
Andrew is a Scorpio with a Leo rising. Boom, done. Let's go. I did it. I banged your wife. No, Carlos. No. He's doing it again.
Desperate Housewives super fans, you need to know. Hold on, sorry, I need to tell the super fans. Cody is watching the episode in real time because we're stupid, me and Summer,
Yeah.
and didn't really think to tell him to watch it ahead of time, but he's doing great.
No, I don't think that I would be able to actually remember anything from this if I were not watching it with you. You know, the way that we shoot is you can go an entire season with never even seeing, maybe you see your cast mate, maybe you see him in hair, maybe you see him, but you're on a different day, you're on a different unit, you're shooting at different times, and you never have a scene together. And Ricardo, who plays Carlos, we worked together for 3 years. We did have one scene together in season 3 at the urinal. But aside from that, I never knew him. I didn't really, we weren't, obviously I'm 16. He's, mid to late 30s or 27, depending on if you ask him or not. But no, but so, that's kind of how it goes. But I did work with him later. I did shoot a movie with Ricardo, and we actually did, for the first time, I think it was in 2015, 2016. So the show ended in 12, maybe. I'm not sure. I actually don't remember when. I think it was 12. So then many years have passed, and then I got to hang out with Ricardo, and I got to know about him.
But you had met him, right? Like you just hadn't had scenes together. You just weren't scheduled on the same days.
Exactly. You're shooting different units. You have your A unit, your B unit, sometimes a C unit, and doing different. And you have a week shoot schedule, and you're coming in, and if you look at the total screen time that any one of these characters gets, especially in the Zach Young storyline, it's not that much screen time. I mean, that's just the way it is. Like, we're talking about Harry Potter. I think someone was telling me that Tom Felton, Draco Malfoy, was only on screen a total of 20 minutes in all of the Harry Potters.
It is, I think it's one of my favorite B stories from this whole season is Carlos being a gay basher. It's so funny. It's just hysterical.
You have to understand, we are very strong allies. We love the gay community. Yeah. So when we talk about loving the hate crime storyline, we don't mean we love hate crimes. We mean we love the comedy of the situation.
Well, I mean, Desperate Housewives itself is, it is really an ally show. I mean, Mark Cherry's gay, and it really gave a voice and a perspective that we don't from the most vulnerable people that we don't often, we're not telling those stories. And this was primetime television in the early 2000s, and Mark trailblazed it, and so you have a voice to these people, and that's one of the really cool things about the show.
Just thinking about Mike and Paul in the quarry.
Yep.
The quarry?
Quarry.
All right, so Mike and Paul, here we go. So
looked like a quarry to me.
I don't know what a quarry is.
A quarry, yeah, it's where they go and mine out material.
Is that a quarry? Is that what it's supposed to be?
You both know what a quarry is.
You don't know what a quarry is?
That's
how
what
would I know?
It certainly is. It looks
okay. I'm glad I was right.
Is that from Minecraft?
No, that's from Civilization.
Okay, you know what, Cody? Why don't you just take the scene?
So, Mike's upset. He's throwing Paul down. This is the pivotal moment between the two when Mike has obviously realized what happened to Deidre. He knows Paul's responsible for it. He doesn't know the full picture of the story of what happened, really. But he's here. Mike is here on Wisteria Lane to discover the mystery. He is there with Noah, figuring out what happened to his wife and child.
Do you know what I really love? I love that when Paul was thrown on the ground and Mike rips off his duct tape, Paul immediately goes, Martha Huber ruined lives. She was terrible to the community. He does not
he say that? Hold on, let's see that.
He does. He goes, Martha Huber ruined lives. I did what I had to do. She ruined my family. It was so funny. I was like, so true.
Because at this point, he thinks that Mike is trying to exact vengeance he's trying to avenge Martha Hoover's
Well,
death,
that's
which is
right,
like so
because Mike
not
doesn't know. Excuse me, Paul doesn't know Mike's involvement.
Right.
right.
Paul's like, damn, that's crazy. I didn't know anybody cared that much except Felicia.
And he's still not going to know for a little while because we have to cut back to Rex, who is at the doctor, and the doctor says that, or he's still in the hospital, I guess, but the doctor's like, hey, your potassium level keeps climbing. It's something you're ingesting. Who's preparing your meals? Which, why is nobody considering the thought of it being the medication? Why is Brie automatically to blame?
Especially these are two cardiologists.
A throwback to the first season where she inadvertently gives him onion.
But still, like, wouldn't Rex know what he's eating? Like, I feel like as a doctor, you know what's high in potassium.
Yeah, right. There should be some blood work that could like determine. Not that I know. I have no idea. Not a doctor.
Dr. Cody Kasch.
So we were like, this whole time, why can't Rex figure out what's wrong with him? He's literally trained in this. And then finally, he's like, let me see my chart. Let me see what it says. And he's like, this can't be right. And he's like, don't talk about my wife like that. She didn't do this. But in his head, he's like, oh my God, Brie's been poisoning me.
Now, no 20-year-old spoilers at all, but you guys are going to have to remind me. Before Rex passes, he does realize it's George, correct?
He never finds out, no.
No.
But we get to Tom. Lynette's just sitting in the dark again, which she did before. And Tom just comes in and she goes, did you have fun? And Tom goes, this was the best day of my life. And he tells
Let's make a baby.
You know what? It's
His answer to
shocking he didn't say
everything.
that because he loves having children. He loves whatever we said about that before, actually.
I said he has a breeding kink. He
That's what it
loves
was.
to breed his wife.
If Tom had a womb, he'd have 40 kids.
You're right, and you should say it.
He was a kangaroo in a past life. Not a kangaroo. Not a kangaroo. Oh my God. A seahorse. I don't know why I thought kangaroo.
I mean, I love that traditional. I mean, like that's your life. You want kids. That's I mean that's
No.
the most normal relationship on all of Wisteria Lane is right there.
Cody, why does he need an army of children?
He's Nick Cannon.
Listen. I know we're in 2024 now, and the whole world is set on 0.5 children, but there was a time. There was a time when that was the thing.
At first, Lynette is sort of protesting a little bit, and she's like, I don't know, like, shouldn't we talk about this at length? And he gets a little bit menacing, and he says, I've already made the decision. You're going back to work.
But it's what she's wanted. It's been her biggest point of unhappiness. Yeah, they have that sort of relationship too that I think that we all have, which it's like, the grass is greener on the other side. You have one thing, you want the other thing, you have it, and it's like we're all just, the theme of the show, we're all just living lives of quiet desperation, and how do we really find our peace and our happiness?
Well, perhaps you can speak a little more to that because the next scene is going to be Susan and Zach once again.
Right, and this is Zach in his happiness.
Yeah.
He's got her hostage.
Susan still thinks that Dana was the baby that Zach accidentally killed. And when she says that to Zach, he again is in his meltdown era and starts throwing the soda she got him and goes, no, that didn't happen, and then tells her what actually did in fact.
Doesn't Zach say something to her like, how stupid are you?
I think he does. Yeah. I believe
Sure
too. If I
does.
remember, that was the only take that I did where I slammed that soda down. This was the boiling point for this character. Really, I think probably in the entirety of the show. For Zach, this was sort of everything had been leading to this moment, and I don't know that we ever saw him again having so much at stake and all of this just coming to a head.
I just like that he came to a head with Susan because, again, this whole season, it's like they haven't directly had any issues, but they have because of who they're connected to. That, like, Susan's just trying to protect Julie for whatever, and there's just this whole, like, familial net that they don't even realize is connected.
It's sort of like Paul Young's Daedalian Web of Lies, if you will.
And that's kind of the take that I get in rewatching the show, is that I think that I understand the sentiment that people feel like this is a very uncomfortable character to sort of be around. I understand that, but there, for me, I do believe that he is sympathetic, all the way into, again, when we get into the third season, not as much, because I think that it was, more of him just being a cunt, part of my language. I've just been in the UK for the last couple months, and that is fine vernacular in the UK. Americans, get over it.
It's starting to come around here now.
But in yeah, that's my takeaway from revisiting it, is that it just is someone caught up in the middle, collateral damage, as you said.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of collateral damage, in the next scene, Rex dies. And he has collateral damage of George's love for Bree. And
this is the phone call.
Yes, and he starts writing a letter. Bree, I understand, I forgive you. So he dies thinking that Bree was poisoning him. And then
so sad.
Bree gets a call that he died. And this, I actually teared up a little bit, and I was very surprised because in the beginning of the season, we were like, can't he just die already? We're sick of Rex. And now I'm like, wait, I'm sad. I'm sad about it. Like, he was just redeeming himself. He was just about to get better.
Can't believe I'm saying it, but poor Rex.
I know. R.I.P. Rex. Rest in peace for real.
And as soon as Bree gets the call, she hangs up by saying, well, thank you very much for calling. She goes right back to polishing the silver, and it's just this very haunting moment of nothing hitting her. And then finally she finishes that task, looks at Rex's chair at the other head of the table, and breaks down. And it's just so heart-wrenching.
Because it's really the first time that we see that facade, the way that she deals and operates in her life. It just breaks, which is why their relationship is so well done. I mean, they're just people who do love each other and just couldn't find a way back to it.
And Marsha Cross
now I'm
in
gonna
this
have tears
scene.
check for a different reason.
No, Marsha Cross. I had chills in her little scene here. Like, just the way she just started weeping. Ugh, she's amazing. The Juilliard really shone through.
Jumped
out.
Yeah. We told you we got to catch up with Marsha at her play, right?
I believe you mentioned it. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
She's the nicest lady
really
in the
nice.
world. We love her.
Definitely. So applause to her, bravo. And I'm also going to applaud the actors in the next scene, Paul and Mike.
Paul has a gun or Mike has a Paul to guns. Oh my God. This happens every week.
Take your time. Take your time.
Every week. Okay. Mike has a gun to Paul's head. He's about to shoot. And then Paul's kind of like heckling him a little. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I just wrote he's heckling him a little bit. And
because I think he wants to know why. Because obviously he just thinks it's like Mrs. Hoover, but maybe he's also kind of like, did Mrs. Hoover mean that much to you, Mike Delfino? So then that's when Mike takes out the picture of Deirdre.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I wrote, Paul is a broken man. I don't know what made me write that.
What
I
I
think
don't
I do.
understand, what I don't understand is like
Please
how
tell.
long was their journey? Like why didn't they have this conversation in the car? Because like Paul didn't have to be duct taped. They could have solved this hours ago, but they didn't. But they drove, wasted so much gas going out there. Come on. Just to be
Well,
You're right, you're right.
I think that Mike's intention always was to kill Paul here,
for
and
sure.
he was,
Yeah.
he was convicted to do it. So that's and now as we move through, now we're getting the flashback about what had actually happened this night.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, as you can see, I'm a very young toddler there. So this is the night that Deirdre, who had made this deal with them, obviously she wants her child back, and they've already built a family together, and you can see Mary Alice is happy about her family. So to see Deirdre show back up at her front door, obviously she understands all the implications of what that means for them and her, and we don't know what she's going to do. We don't know, and so Deidre obviously gives her story about, the position she was in when she was strung out on drugs, and why she did what she did, and now she rightfully wants her child back.
Young Zach is so adorable. Like, that is the cutest kid. I know that's such a sidebar, but I'm not a kid person, and I just thought he was so cute.
Yeah, I mean, I like teenage Zach a little more.
You're a little biased.
I mean, you talk about conviction, Zach having it. Do you see what he walks around in? That is some goddamn conviction.
That's right.
Same outfit pretty much every episode. But I loved the shots in this scene and the foreshadowing. You see Mary Alice like chopping the vegetables with the knife, and then they're just like a little happy family. And then Deirdre starts to get a little aggressive, and Mary Alice assumes that she's using again. And then Deirdre like hits Paul with something, and Paul immediately like collapses on the ground. And I was like, that just shows he was such a fragile, non-violent man.
He was a noodle, is what he was.
He was.
He was a
He
noodle.
He would never hurt a fly. And then Deirdre's about to run upstairs.
All right, but let's be real here. Let's be real here. Right there. She picks up the iron and she beats Paul down. Say this woman comes in. So this woman comes into their house and assaults them. Actually, she had every right to kill her. Let's be real. Legally,
that's what I was going to ask you.
speaking.
Actually, yeah, I was going to ask you guys: self-defense, yay or nay? Could they have gone to the police?
They most certainly have a case. Even at them, she gave the child away. She did. Maybe it wasn't legally adopted, but it wasn't. Then she comes into their home. They invite her in, and she assaults them with a weapon, a deadly weapon, assault with a deadly weapon, intent to kill, inside somebody's home. And then, so what the Young family could have done here is just gone to the cops and been like, "Here's what happened." This whole story thing, given them the story, and they most certainly probably would have kept Zach.
Yeah,
I think Paul's only flaw is that he doesn't really think clearly ever. Like he doesn't.
Right.
He just like kind of thinks like digging up the toy chest wasn't really that smart. I don't think any of this would have happened. He could have just left it there. Same with this.
Right.
Like they could have called the police and said, "Oh my God, she just attacked us. Like I was just gonna try to get her in the leg or something, and I accidentally killed her." Like they definitely had a case, but instead, when Mary Alice turns around and just stabs her in the stomach or wherever, they decide to chop her into little bits and put her in Zach's toy chest.
And we see what I personally attributed to the formation of Zach's personality as we see it today, because the cute little toddler Zach is standing at the top of the stairs and sees dead Deirdre on the floor. Cody, feel free to confirm or deny, but do you think that's when things started to like change for young Zach?
I mean, I think you could certainly say that, but they obviously have an entire, 10 years with this kid to, give him the nurturement and the, health that he deserves and the love that he deserves. And I don't know, to be honest, I don't know why Zach would have ended up the way that he ended up without that. I mean, maybe this event, because you can clearly see Mary Alice is a very loving mother and clearly loves Zach very much. So maybe something shifted with her, which is why she commits suicide, that she couldn't ever, the guilt or the trauma or something, she couldn't actually give Zach again the love. But I would think it would be the opposite. I would think that after you've done this deed and you've gone that far to chop this woman out all chopped up in a box, and sorry, I just love that line. Shout out to Brett Cullen. I actually shot a movie with Brett Cullen a few years later, and so I got to work with him. And this was right before he did. If you recognize Brett, I love Brett. He's really a great guy. He also just played Thomas Wayne in the Joker movie. He played Joaquin's father.
Oh no!
But
that's really cool.
Or not his father, but in any case, I would think it would be the opposite. I would think if you've gone that far and you've committed this act and you've taken this child and you've lived a double life and you have this whole other thing, you're gonna really give this kid all of the love that you possibly can, because you've made the commitment. I mean, you're in this deep. The commitment is there. So I don't know why. You could say maybe it messed Zach up, but obviously they messed him up, and so it's hard to make those connections.
I was really, really eager to get your take on that, so I'm very glad we finally have it.
I would say that I think it messed up Paul the most, because he says, while lying on the ground, frail, never hurt a fly, goes, "Oh, Mary Alice, what did you do?"
It messed Paul up, yeah. Maybe, which makes a case for the fact that Paul just couldn't love Zach, which is really, sad again for Zach. I mean, I think that maybe you could also make the argument that Zach is really mentally ill. Is a sociopath, but he's not. He's not actually. You see him in these moments with Julie, and these moments with, later in the 7th season, where like he doesn't really care about himself more than anybody else. He isn't just and that's why I'm a little bemused at all the fanfare that Paul gets, because from my perspective in watching it, I'm like, this is a fucked up dude. Like, I don't like, that's, and another thing I just have to say, segue, why are all the men such pussies? Jesus Christ. Have some
rated E for explicit.
Excuse my language. Have a fucking backbone, Paul Young. All right, sorry guys. I know you're stands.
Well, no,
it's okay.
Then he later has a backbone because he avenged Mary Alice later when he hit her with the blender that Martha stole from her. Also,
she had it coming.
She did. She had it coming this whole time. She only
really
has herself to blame.
No, but I mean, you know what? And thinking about it and rewatching and seeing contextually, it really, Mary Alice caused this mess.
She did. I didn't realize that.
It was really Mary Alice.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
And to that end, we find out in this scene that Mike didn't even know Deidre had a baby, which is clearly disturbing to him. You can see it in his eyes.
It is. It's disturbing to everyone. Why Zach didn't show up at Mike's funeral.
Don't get me started on Mike Delfino's death.
Remind us.
Don't get me started. That made me so upset. And I will never... Thank God it was towards the end, because that made me so angry.
I do think that they could have certainly explored the Mike Zach relationship a lot more in depth than they did. It was
Yeah.
like it was just kind of this odd little like sidebar that sort of never really came into being anything.
That is true. I feel
I would
like
have loved to see that
it would have
explored.
made more sense for him to be like, no, Zach's my kid. I guess, I mean, he tried to do that in the beginning, but then to have him, like, that could have been a whole other, like, aspect of him just, like, taking Zach and being like, no, you're my son now. You live with me. But I don't know if Zach would have liked
That's
that
my
because
baby.
Zach loved Paul. But we see that in
Yeah,
season
but then
2.
you look at Zach and like that's some damaged goods right there. Let's just move on. We got a new one, MJ. MJ is gonna be the one.
Damaged goods is crazy.
Did you ever have scenes with MJ?
No, I never did.
No.
No, that was a different season, different
Yeah.
sort of
Another life.
another thing.
In
Yeah.
another life.
But that's weird that MJ's 2 siblings kind of dated.
So if we'd had a kid, what would that kid have been? It would have been uncle brother, uncle cousin.
Yeah.
What?
Whoa.
Because, and Julie's, and their parents, yeah. Because Susan and Mike and Julie and Zach, like, that's a weird little thing they didn't realize
It's
they
a
were
modern
doing.
American family.
That's in Gossip Girl,
I think it
too.
was just nephew. It was just nephew, right? I think that's what it
Yeah.
would be.
Mhm.
Nephew is the safe way to play it.
Because
Let's
they're
go.
not technically relate.
No, they're not. They're not.
Mm.
But he is both of his.
Yeah.
We'll revisit this. We'll come back.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
call me back when you review this episode.
In our closing monologue, we see Lynette watching her kids sleeping, and she's thinking about her future back in the ad game. Gabby is awake in the dark, thinking about her future, and Carlos, and the mess that has been made in court. Bree is looking sad, yet beautiful, and Mary Alice is talking about how things never really were perfect anyway. And of course, the last thing we see is Zach with Susan and the gun.
No, the last thing we
Right.
see is Mike walking in the door.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Because
was
then
waiting for you
the
to
first
say that.
episode of the next season.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, so I'm a little turned around here because I forgot that this is the season finale of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I see the Applewhites, my brain always thinks that we're in season 2.
Same.
Me too.
We
Right? So I
didn't
thought, so I saw
realize
the
they come in
Applewhites,
that
and I'm
early.
like, wait, are we in season? Yeah, that's right. They came in that episode. So that was the season finale for season 1. Yeah. I for some reason I was like thinking it was season 2. That wouldn't have made any sense.
Yeah. Well, this has been a journey. Please give us your final thoughts, your overall review.
From my view now at this time, I really do believe that first season of Desperate Housewives was fantastic television. And it's interesting going back, not having really any skin in the game, not having any. I mean, they've done so many things that I would never say that about. But there was just such a great bit of television there, and it's really fun for me to. I think that as we were going through it, there was a lot of stuff that I never had thought about before. Stuff. So thank you guys for having me on, and ultimately, if give your kids a hug and give them a break if they're a little weird. I'm gonna leave you guys with that.
You hear that, Mom? Yeah, no, that's absolutely wonderful. It's sorry.
Well, but wait, I
things.
do want to go back because we didn't also talk about the scene where Mike makes the decision not to kill Paul.
Oh, we did skip over that. We didn't say that.
Oh,
yeah. So
that's crazy of us.
Do you want to take it, Cody?
In light of everything that, just in light of everything that we saw, that really Paul was just kind of like along for the ride here. For this thing, I think that Mike saw that and he understood, and I think that he realized that Paul is a little pathetic, and I think that he was able to he made the right choice. Ultimately Mike's the good guy. He's the everyman. He is the dream. He's the dream man.
Ugh, tell me about it.
I just want to know how Paul got home, and I think about this every time I've ever watched this episode. Mike just like drops the gun and walks away, and we never see how
Left him in the
left him in the
quarry.
quarry. Yes, we never see how he got home. Did he have to walk? He was in the middle of nowhere. Like this
I think
actually, I don't understand. We call a cab.
there was an
Uber.
excavator there that I think he took.
A what?
Really?
With the excavators, the giant tractor they used to take the material out of the quarry. No,
Okay.
not really. I was just kidding.
Oh.
There's no Ubers at that time.
I'm a
Again,
Libra.
you
I
saw their
know.
phones. They're using Nokia flip phones.
I guess he walked home.
Yeah.
Definitely probably called a cab.
But how would he call a cab?
I'm sure there's a payphone somewhere.
He
You guys
had to
remember
do
those?
some walking.
They
for sure.
used to have
In
them.
the quarry?
He's gonna leave the quarry. He's gonna call and he's gonna come back.
I am not going to forgive you guys for teaching me that new word. Cody, it has been an absolute pleasure recapping this episode with you. Is there anything you would like to plug? Anything you'd like to shout out, tell people to be on the lookout for from you?
No, Summer, thank you. Right now, in regards to what I've been doing, I spent that you just witnessed my childhood. I spent 20 years working in film and television, and it was and is my life's work. And for me, I've just taken some time off in the last couple of years and just traveled and enjoyed myself. And
Excellent.
but yeah, we have our strike ending, and for me, I have a well, it's ended, but yeah, for me, I'm in the process of been developing a production company for the last 8 years, and I have a lot of different films that I'm looking forward to getting into. For me personally, I love my work as an actor, but we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier
Mhm.
about the inconsistencies of it, and it's very difficult to build a life around that sometimes. And I know a lot of child actors struggle really hard
Mhm.
as they get older, because you may have worked really consistently as a younger person, but it's very few of us that we end up in a position where we're working a lot. I happen to be an incredible fan of cinema, and so yeah, for me, you're gonna see some films that I have written and some films that I have directed, and that's the next couple years for me.
Amazing. Well, we cannot
I think
wait to see and hear more of you. No, that's awesome, actually. I love it when actors just completely 180 and go the production company route.
I was just thinking about this. Yeah, I mean, I think that we have such an education. I'm such an
Mhm.
my all of my expertise is in this field specifically, and it's you kind of like wonder what to do with it if you don't. It's a very hard gig. There is a very small percentage of actors who work a lot, and even with there's even a smaller percentage of those working actors that are the big name actors that get the majority of the
Mhm.
projects. And I think that you try to figure out exactly how you're going to make a contribution to the art and make a contribution to the world with what's going to be your work and you're going to do. And for me, it was just kind of similar in a way to Ron Howard, who came up as a child actor's family of actors. I was a family of
Mhm.
actors. He worked thoroughly and throughout his young adult, but never really had the big name as an actor. And then went into production and filmmaking and made some of the greatest films, from the perspective of an actor, which is
Mhm.
we know character and we know writing, and that's kind of what our strong suits are as actors, when we get into filmmaking. So yeah, for me, it's been a process. We live in a world now. I mean, Desperate Housewives was shot in 2004. We started. We ran to 2012. That was just the beginning of social media and the social media takeover. It was a hard transition for a lot of us because the model that we used at that time was a model that like you had to be very, very careful with what stuff that you did. If you were on a
Mhm.
bad television show, if you did bad commercials, you were very much in a category. And there was this idea that if you overexposed yourself, right, if you were someone who was like, because there's categories, there's entertainers, there's actors, there's sometimes you're all three, sometimes you're Hugh Jackman, right, you're the consummate,
Mm-hmm.
you're the entertainer, you're the star, and you're also an actor, right?
Right.
That's very rare. It's usually you're one of the other. Usually you're the go-to guy who you've seen in a million movies, right? But you don't know who the guy is. But he always delivers. He always says delivers. And for a lot of us, it was like, there was actually, the paradigm was like, actually, no, bad publicity is bad publicity.
Yeah.
And if you're seen in a very specific way, it was a much more conservative time. 9/11 had just happened, you know. We were very careful with what we did. We were very careful with putting things out there. We were very private. And, then when social media took over, a lot of people in my generation have had this conversation a lot with a lot of actors. Just had this conversation with the actor Jonathan Lipnicki, right, who was a child star. You have Jerry Maguire and Little Stewart and My Little Vampire. And, it was like we had a different model. We didn't embrace social media as readily as other people did, because we thought, we had this idea that it cheapened your value as a performer, and that anonymity was more an asset than it was negative. But the last 15 years, last 10 years really, showed us that no, just put yourself out there, right? And but for me, again, because this is my life's work, it was never about that. It was about, I'm going to do something that's going to be something of value and something quality, and that is, you will have a more of an everlasting, and it's not about fame, it's not about money, it's not about any of that stuff. So yeah, so that's kind of where my life has taken me. And in the next 10 years, I'm gonna make probably 10 films.
Extremely well said. I think I speak for Christy and myself when I say we're really excited to see everything that's going to be coming from you. And we're just really grateful to have been able to spend this time with you, and that you gave us some extra time. And this has just been like a really wonderful, insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it was really a pleasure. You guys are lovely, Chrissy. You guys are just lovely. I really only felt sort of drawn and inclined to do this because I saw your stuff. I saw your page. I listened to your podcast, and honestly, I never really fully embraced, the fans. I never embraced the public side of what I do. I didn't. I kept a very low profile, and so this is actually really one of my first in-depth, conversations about. It's so weird because it was 20 years ago, but I never, did it. So I felt very good about doing it with you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you so
and,
much.
Better late than never, right?
Yes, we are wow, that's such an honor. I'm so glad that we get to be the ones to introduce you, Cody, into the world of the free,
The
Desperate
Desperate
Housewives
super
super fans, so they can
Cool.
see you a different way than Zach Young and the image that they probably have. And we're breaking
Sure,
that.
yeah, certainly. Well, that's truly an honor. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much. You are welcome back on the sorry, I'm so laggy. You are welcome back on the podcast anytime. Desperate Housewives super fans, we hope you enjoyed this little treat. And until next time, this has been We Know What You Did.
It makes us sick.
It's all chopped up. Oh wait, that's not it. we're gonna tell.
Bye, guys.